The rain was relentless, hammering the windshield of Eli's beat-up sedan as he crossed the Oregon state line, his heart a tangle of grief and grit. 3 months ago, he'd walked away from the love of his life, Caleb, thinking distance would heal the wounds of their unraveling. Now, with nowhere else to go, he was heading home to his brother's house in Willow Creek only to find his past waiting like a ghost that refused to fade. Eli gripped the steering wheel, the ache in his chest sharper than the storm outside. Portland's neon lights had promised freedom when he'd left, but all he'd found was loneliness, the kind that clung like damp clothes. Willow Creek, a sleepy coastal town of 5,000, was his last refuge, where his older brother, Matt, had always been his anchor. Matt's texts had been short but warm. Come home, Eli. We'll figure it out. Eli hadn't mentioned Caleb. He couldn't. Not when the breakup still felt like a fresh cut, raw and bleeding every time he thought of Caleb's hazel eyes, the way they'd spark with laughter or darken with hurt. The house came into view, a weathered craftsman with peeling blue paint, nestled among pines. Eli parked, his breath catching as he saw a familiar figure on the porch, illuminated by the soft glow of a lantern. Caleb. His Caleb, leaning against the railing, hair damp from the rain, looking like he belonged there. Eli's heart lurched, part fury, part longing. What the hell was he doing here? And why was he at Matt's house? Eli stepped out, the gravel crunching under his boots, rain soaking his jacket. Caleb straightened, his expression a mix of shock and something softer, something that made Eli's resolve waver. Eli, Caleb said, voice low, almost lost in the storm. You're back. Apparently. So are you. Eli shot back, his tone sharper than he meant. He glanced at the house, where Matt appeared in the doorway, his broad frame filling the space. Matt's smile faltered as he registered the tension. Eli, you made it. Matt called, oblivious to the undercurrent. Caleb's been staying with me for a bit. Didn't I mention? No. Matt hadn't mentioned. Eli's stomach twisted. His ex, the man who'd shattered his world, was living with his brother. The betrayal stung, though he couldn't yet name who'd betrayed him. Guess it slipped your mind, Eli muttered, brushing past Caleb, their shoulders grazing just enough to send a jolt through him. Inside, the house smelled of cedar and coffee, the same as always, but it felt foreign now. Matt clapped Eli on the back, oblivious to the storm brewing between the other two. You look like hell, little brother. Hungry? Eli forced a nod, his eyes flicking to Caleb, who lingered by the door, hands shoved in his pockets. The silence was thick, heavy with unspoken words. 3 months ago, they'd been everything to each other, late nights whispering dreams in a cramped Portland apartment, Caleb's guitar strumming softly while Eli sketched. But trust had frayed. Arguments had escalated, and Eli had walked away, thinking it was for the best. Now, here they were, under the same roof, with Matt caught in the middle. Dinner's ready, Matt said, breaking the tension. Caleb's been helping out around here. He's good company. The words landed like a punch. Eli's jaw tightened. Helping out. Good company. What was this? He wanted answers. But the weight of the day, 12 hours of driving, the breakup's lingering ache kept him quiet. They sat at the oak table, the same one where Eli and Matt had carved their initials as kids. Caleb's presence across from him felt like a fever dream. Every glance was a memory, Caleb's laugh at a dive bar, the way he'd trace Eli's knuckles when they fought, promising they'd get through it. But they hadn't. Eli pushed his food around. Appetite gone. So, Matt said, oblivious to the undercurrents. Caleb's been fixing up the old shed. Thinking of turning it into a studio or something. Right. Caleb. Caleb nodded. Eyes on his plate. Yeah. Keeps me busy. Eli's fork stilled. A studio. Caleb was settling in. Building a life here. The thought burned. How long you planning to stay? Eli asked. His voice tight. Caleb met his gaze. Unflinching. As long as Matt's okay with it. Matt laughed. Clueless. Hell. He can stay forever. Place is too quiet without you two causing trouble. Eli's chest tightened. He wanted to scream. To demand why Caleb was here. Why Matt hadn't told him. But he didn't. Not yet. Instead, he excused himself, claiming exhaustion, and retreated to the guest room, his old room, still cluttered with teenage relics. As he lay on the creaky bed, rain drumming the roof, he heard Caleb's voice downstairs, low and familiar, talking to Matt. The sound was both comfort and torment. Sleep didn't come. Eli stared at the ceiling, replaying the breakup. Caleb's accusations of Eli shutting him out. Eli's own fears of being too much or not enough. They'd loved fiercely, but love hadn't been enough to bridge their flaws. Now, Caleb was here, in his brother's house, and Eli couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Why hadn't Matt mentioned Caleb? And why did Caleb look at him like he still cared? By morning, the rain had stopped, but the tension hadn't. Eli found Caleb in the backyard, sanding down a plank for the shed. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing the tattoo of a compass on his forearm matching one to Eli's. Inked during happier days. We need to talk, Eli said, his voice steady despite the chaos inside. Caleb paused, wiping sweat from his brow. Yeah, we do. The air between them crackled, heavy with everything unsaid. Eli didn't know if he wanted to fight or fall into Caleb's arms. But one thing was clear, coming home had just gotten a lot more complicated. The backyard was a patchwork of green and gray. The grass damp from last night's rain. The shed half rebuilt under Caleb's hands. Eli stood a few feet away, his breath visible in the chilly morning air, his heart pounding like it might break free. Why are you here, Caleb? He asked, the question sharp but laced with a tremor he couldn't hide. Caleb set the sandpaper down, his hazel eyes catching the light. Matt offered me a place to crash. I didn't have anywhere else to go after us. His voice was steady, but there was a crack in it, a hint of the same pain Eli carried. Eli's fists clenched. You didn't think to tell me. Or Matt didn't think to tell me. What's going on here? The words spilled out, raw and accusing. He wanted to believe Matt's oversight was innocent, but doubt gnawed at him. His brother had always been the peacemaker, the one who fixed things. Had he known Caleb was here and chosen not to warn Eli? Caleb stepped closer, his boots sinking into the soft earth. I didn't know you were coming back, Eli. Matt said you were in Portland, starting over. I thought. He stopped, swallowing hard. I thought you were done with me. The words hit like a slap. Done with him. Eli had spent every night in Portland replaying their last fight, wishing he'd said something different. Fought harder. You're the one who gave up, Eli said, voice low. You stopped talking, Caleb. You shut me out. Caleb's jaw tightened. And you walked away. You left. Eli. What was I supposed to do? Chase you. The accusation hung between them, heavy as the mist rolling in from the coast. Eli wanted to argue, to throw every hurt back at Caleb. But the sight of him worn jeans, that damn compass tattoo, stirred something softer. He remembered the nights they'd spent planning a future, dreaming of a house by the sea, music and art filling their days. How had it gone so wrong? Before Eli could respond, Matt's voice cut through from the porch. You two gonna stand there glaring all day? Or you coming in for coffee? His tone was light, but his eyes darted between them, sensing the storm. Eli forced a tight smile. Yeah, coming. He brushed past Caleb, their arms grazing again, the contact sparking memories he wasn't ready to face. Inside, Matt had the radio on, some old country song filling the kitchen. Eli poured coffee, avoiding Caleb's gaze, but the tension followed them like a shadow. Over breakfast, Matt rambled about his job at the lumber mill, the town's annual festival, anything to fill the silence. Eli barely listened, his mind stuck on Caleb. Why was he here? Fixing sheds, acting like he belonged. And why did Matt seem so comfortable with it? Eli's thoughts churned, suspicion mingling with the ache of seeing Caleb again. After breakfast, Matt headed to work, leaving Eli and Caleb alone. The house felt too small, the air too thick. Eli grabbed his sketchbook, needing something to ground him, and headed to the living room. Caleb followed, hesitating in the doorway. You still draw? Caleb asked, his voice softer now. Eli nodded, flipping open the book. The pages were filled with half-finished sketches. Portland skyline, a stranger's face in a cafe, Caleb's hands playing guitar. He hadn't realized how much of Caleb was still in his art. Helps me think, Eli said, not looking up. Caleb sat across from him, elbows on his knees. I never stopped thinking about you, he said quietly. Not once. Eli's pencil froze. He wanted to believe it, wanted to let the words pull him back to what they'd had. But trust was a fragile thing, and theirs had shattered. Then why are you here with Matt? What's the deal? Caleb, you just move in with my brother like it's nothing. Caleb's face tightened. It's not like that. Matt's been a friend. He knew I was struggling, offered me a place. That's it. That's it. Eli's voice rose. You expect me to believe you just showed up? And Matt? What? Forgot to mention it. My brother's not that careless. Caleb stood, frustration flashing in his eyes. Maybe you should ask Matt. Then. I'm not the one keeping secrets. The words stung, and Eli's mind raced. Was Caleb implying Matt was hiding something? Or was this just deflection? Before he could press further, Caleb grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. I've got work to do, he muttered, leaving Eli alone with his doubts. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Eli wandered Willow Creek, the familiar streets both comforting and suffocating. The diner where he and Caleb had shared milkshakes. The pier where they'd kissed under the starset was all still here, mocking him. By evening, he was back at the house, sketching furiously, trying to make sense of the mess in his head. When Matt came home, Eli didn't waste time. Why didn't you tell me Caleb was here? He asked, keeping his voice even. Matt froze, beer halfway to his lips. I meant to. It just didn't come up. He needed a place. Eli, I didn't think it'd be a big deal. Not a big deal. Eli's voice cracked. He's my ex. Matt. The guy he stopped. The word love caught in his throat. Matt set the beer down, his face softening. I'm sorry, man. I should have said something. But Caleb's been through a lot. He's not here to mess with you. Eli wanted to believe him, but the pieces didn't fit. Matt's hesitation, Caleb's vague answers, it all felt wrong. That night, as he lay awake, Eli made a decision. He'd get answers, no matter what it took. Because if Caleb was hiding something, or worse, if Matt was, Eli needed to know before his heart broke all over again. Eli woke to the smell of pancakes, the kind Matt used to make when they were kids. But the comfort of it was overshadowed by the knot in his stomach. He couldn't shake Caleb's words, I'm not the one keeping secrets. They'd burrowed into him, fueling a restless night of questions. Was Matt protecting Caleb? Or was there something deeper? Something neither of them was saying. Downstairs, Matt was flipping pancakes, humming along to the radio. Caleb was nowhere in sight, and Eli was grateful for the reprieve. He needed to talk to his brother alone. Morning, Eli said, sliding into a chair. Where's Caleb? Matt glanced over, spatula in hand. Out early. Said he had to pick up supplies for the shed. He paused, studying Eli. You okay? You look like you didn't sleep. Eli ignored the question. Matt, level with me. What's the deal with Caleb? Why's he really here? Matt sighed, setting the spatula down. I told you. He needed a place. He showed up a month ago, looking like he'd been through hell. Said he lost his job in Portland. Couldn't afford rent. I didn't ask too many questions. Figured he'd tell me when he was ready. Eli's jaw tightened. And you didn't think to tell me. My ex shows up at your house. And you just let him in. Matt's eyes softened with guilt. I messed up. Eli. I thought you were moving on. Didn't want to stir things up by mentioning him. I'm sorry. The apology was sincere, but it didn't ease the ache. Eli wanted to believe Matt, but the timing felt too convenient. Caleb losing his job, showing up here. Matt not mentioning something wasn't adding up. What's he told you about us? Eli asked, voice low. Matt hesitated, flipping a pancake onto a plate. Not much. Just that you two split. And it was rough. He didn't go into details. You know Caleb's not big on opening up. That much was true. Caleb had always kept his pain close, like a guarded secret. It was one of the things that had driven them apart, Eli's need for honesty clashing with Caleb's walls. But now, those walls were keeping Eli in the dark about something bigger. He could feel it. After breakfast, Eli headed to the shed, where Caleb was unloading lumber from a borrowed truck. The sight of him, sleeves rolled up, muscles taut under his flannel, stirred a familiar ache. Eli hated how much he still wanted him. Even now. We're not done talking, Eli said, leaning against the shed. Caleb didn't look up. Thought we said enough yesterday. You said I should ask Matt. I did. Now I'm asking you. What's going on? Caleb. Why are you really here? Caleb set a plank down, his movements deliberate. I told you. I needed a place. Matt offered. End of story. Bullshit. Eli snapped. You expect me to believe you just happened to end up at my brother's house. You knew I'd come back eventually. Caleb's eyes flashed, a mix of anger and hurt. You think I planned this? You think I wanted to be here, knowing you might show up and look at me like I'm the enemy? I didn't, Eli. But I had nowhere else to go. The rawness in his voice caught Eli off guard. He saw the exhaustion in Caleb's face, the shadows under his eyes. For a moment, he wanted to reach out, to pull Caleb close like he used to. But the questions held him back. Then why didn't you tell me you were here? Why let me walk into this blind? Caleb ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Because I didn't know how. You left. Eli. You made it clear you were done. I wasn't going to beg you to care. The words cut deep. But Eli pressed on. And Matt? What's he not telling me? You said he's keeping secrets. Caleb's expression faltered, like he'd said too much. Ask him yourself, he muttered, turning back to the lumber. I'm not your messenger. Eli wanted to push, to demand answers. But the weight of Caleb's pain stopped him. He walked away, the damp grass sticking to his boots, his mind a storm of doubt and longing. Back at the house, he found Matt's old journal on a shelf, a relic from their teenage years. Flipping through it, he saw Matt's messy handwriting, pages filled with dreams of leaving Willow Creek, of building something bigger. But one entry caught his eye. Dated a year ago, Caleb's good for Eli. Hope they make it. Eli's throat tightened. Matt had always rooted for them, even when they were falling apart. So why the secrecy now? He spent the afternoon sketching, trying to lose himself in the lines. But every stroke turned into Caleb's face, his hands, his hurt. That evening, the three of them sat in the living room, the tension palpable. Matt tried to keep things light, talking about the festival, but Eli couldn't take it anymore. Matt, he said, cutting him off. What aren't you telling me about Caleb? The room went still. Matt's smile faded, and Caleb's gaze dropped to the floor. Eli, Matt started, his voice careful. It's not my story to tell. Then whose is it? Eli demanded, his eyes flicking to Caleb. Because I'm done with half-truths. Caleb stood, his chair scraping against the wood. You want the truth? Fine. But not like this. He grabbed his jacket and walked out, the door slamming behind him. Eli's heart pounded. He looked at Matt, waiting for an explanation. But his brother just shook his head. Give him time. Eli. He's carrying more than you know. The words only deepened the mystery. Eli didn't know what hurt more, the secrets or the fact that Caleb was still pulling at his heart. Even now, Eli couldn't sit still. The house felt like a cage, every creak and shadow reminding him of Caleb's abrupt exit. He grabbed his coat and headed out, the cool night air biting at his skin as he followed the path to the pier, where he knew Caleb would be. It was their old spot, where they'd spent countless nights talking, dreaming, fighting. If Caleb was running, that's where he'd go. The pier stretched over the dark Pacific, waves crashing below, the air thick with salt and memory. Caleb was there, leaning against the railing, his silhouette sharp against the moonlight. Eli's heart thudded as he approached, the distance between them feeling like miles. You can't keep running from me, Eli said, his voice carrying over the wind. Caleb didn't turn. I'm not running. I just needed air. Eli stepped closer, close enough to see the tension in Caleb's shoulders. You said I'd get the truth. So give it to me. What's going on? Why are you here? And why's Matt acting like he's hiding something? Caleb's hands gripped the railing, knuckles white. For a long moment, he didn't speak, the waves filling the silence. When he finally turned, his eyes were raw, glistening. I didn't come here to hurt you, Eli. I came because I was drowning. Drowning. Eli's voice softened, despite his frustration. What happened? Caleb. After I left. What happened? Caleb took a shaky breath. I lost everything. My job. My apartment. My hope. I got fired for missing too many shifts. Gallant focus after we split. I was sleeping on friends' couches. But that ran dry. Matt found me at a bar one night. A mess. He offered me a place. Said I could get back on my feet. I didn't know you'd come back. Eli's chest tightened. He could see the truth in Caleb's eyes. The weight he'd been carrying. But it didn't explain everything. And Matt? Why's he so cagey about it? Caleb hesitated, his gaze dropping. He's trying to protect you. From me. From you. Eli's voice rose. Incredulous. What does that even mean? Caleb's jaw clenched, like he was wrestling with something he didn't want to say. I messed up. Eli. After you left, I got into some trouble. Nothing illegal, but bad choices. Drinking too much. Hanging with the wrong people. Matt saw it. He didn't want you to know how low I got. The confession hit Eli like a wave. He'd imagined Caleb moving on. Maybe finding someone new. Not spiraling. The thought of him hurting, alone, made Eli's anger falter. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. Quieter now. You could have called. Caleb laughed. A bitter sound. And say what? Hey, Eli. I'm falling apart. Come fix me. You were done with me. I wasn't going to drag you back into my mess. Eli stepped closer, their faces inches apart now. I was never done with you, he said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. I left because I thought it was what you wanted. You stopped fighting for us. Caleb's eyes searched his, a storm of emotions swirling. I never stopped fighting. I just didn't know how to do it right. For a moment, they stood there, the past and present colliding. Eli wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap, but the hurt was still too raw. What now? Caleb. You're here. I'm here. And Matt's stuck in the middle. Where do we go from this? Caleb shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know. But I'm not running anymore. They walked back to the house in silence, the weight of Caleb's confession settling between them. When they got inside, Matt was waiting, his face etched with worry. Everything okay? He asked, looking between them. Eli nodded, though nothing felt okay. We're working on it, he said, his eyes on Caleb. Matt didn't push, but Eli could see the guilt in his brother's expression, the unspoken apology for keeping him in the dark. The next few days were a delicate dance. Eli and Caleb circled each other, their conversations careful but charged. Eli caught glimpses of the old Caleb, the one who'd hum while working, who'd tease Eli about his messy sketches. But there was a new weight to him, a caution that hadn't been there before. Eli wanted to ask more, to dig into what bad choices meant. But he held back, sensing Caleb needed time. One afternoon, while Matt was at work, Eli found Caleb in the shed, strumming his guitar. The melody was soft, haunting, one of their old songs. Eli leaned against the doorway, listening. You wrote that for me, he said when Caleb stopped. Caleb looked up, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Still do. The words hung there, simple but heavy. Eli's heart ached with the possibility of starting over. But trust was a fragile thing, and he wasn't sure he could rebuild it yet. We need to be honest, Eli said. No more secrets. Not you. Not Matt. Caleb nodded, setting the guitar down. No more secrets. I promise. But as Eli walked away, a nagging doubt lingered. Caleb was opening up, but Matt was still holding something back. And until Eli knew the full truth, he couldn't let himself fall again. The days blurred into a rhythm of uneasy coexistence. Eli threw himself into sketching, filling pages with the jagged lines of Willow Creek's cliffs and the softer curves of Caleb's hands. Caleb worked on the shed, his focus intense, as if the manual labor could keep his demons at bay. Matt played the buffer, his easygoing nature a thin veil over the tension that pulsed through the house. Eli couldn't stop watching Caleb, searching for signs of the man he'd loved, the one who'd dance with him in the kitchen, who'd whisper poetry under the stars. He saw flashes of him, but they were shadowed by the weight of what Caleb wasn't saying. And Matt was still dodging. His answers too vague. His smiles too forced. Eli needed the truth, and he was done waiting. One evening, after dinner, Eli cornered Matt in the garage, where he was tinkering with an old motorcycle. We need to talk, Eli said, closing the door behind him. The air smelled of oil and metal, grounding him as his pulse raced. Matt wiped his hands on a rag, his expression wary. What's up? No more bullshit. Matt, what are you not telling me about Caleb? He said you're protecting me. From what? Matt's shoulders slumped, and for the first time, Eli saw real fear in his brother's eyes. It's not simple, Eli. Caleb, he got mixed up with some bad people after you left. Not criminals, but guys who dragged him down. He was drinking, partying too hard, trying to numb everything. I found him one night, passed out in an alley behind a bar. Scared the hell out of me. Eli's stomach dropped. Why didn't you tell me? Matt ran a hand through his hair, his voice low. Because I knew you'd blame yourself. You were already hurting, trying to start over in Portland. I didn't want you running back to fix him, not when you were barely holding it together. Eli's throat tightened. He could picture it, Caleb, lost and broken. The way he'd looked on the pier, raw and vulnerable. You should have told me, Eli said, his voice cracking. He's not just some guy, Matt. He's everything. Matt's eyes softened. I know. That's why I took him in. I thought I could help him get back on his feet, keep him away from that crowd. But I didn't know how to tell you without making it worse. Eli leaned against the workbench, the weight of it all crashing down. What else? There's more, isn't there? Matt hesitated, then nodded. Caleb's been getting calls. I don't know who, but they're not good. He's been jumpy, checking his phone like he's waiting for something. I told him to cut contact, but I don't know if he has. The revelation hit Eli hard. Caleb was still tied to whatever mess he'd fallen into, and Matt had been shielding them both, carrying the burden alone. You should have trusted me, Eli said, but there was no anger left, only exhaustion. I'm sorry, Matt said, and this time, Eli believed him. That night, Eli found Caleb in the backyard, staring at the stars. The air was crisp, the scent of pine heavy. Eli sat beside him, their shoulders close but not touching. Matt told me, Eli said quietly, about the drinking, the people you got mixed up with, the calls. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. I didn't want you to know how bad it got. I was ashamed, Eli. Still am. Eli's heart ached. torn between anger and empathy. You should have told me. I could have helped. Caleb shook his head. You deserved better than my mess. I'm trying to fix it. I swear. That's why I'm here. Working. Staying clean. But those guys, they don't let go easy. Eli's pulse quickened. Are you in danger? Caleb's silence was answer enough. Eli reached out, his hand brushing Caleb's. You don't have to do this alone, he said, his voice fierce. Not anymore. Caleb's eyes met his, and for a moment, the walls were gone. I don't deserve you, Caleb whispered. Eli squeezed his hand, the compass tattoos aligning. Let me decide that. The next morning, Eli woke with a new resolve. He'd help Caleb, no matter what it took. But when he checked his phone, there was a text from an unknown number. Tell Caleb he can't hide forever. Eli's blood ran cold. Whatever Caleb was running from, it had followed him to Willow Creek. And now, it was Eli's fight too. The text burned into Eli's mind, each word a splinter under his skin. He stared at the screen, the unknown number taunting him. Caleb was in trouble, real trouble, and Eli wasn't about to let him face it alone. He found Caleb in the shed, sanding wood with a focus that looked more like avoidance. We need to talk, Eli said, holding up his phone. Now. Caleb's eyes flicked to the screen, and his face paled. Where'd you get that? Doesn't matter. Who are they? Caleb. And what do they want? Caleb set the sandpaper down, his hands shaking slightly. They're people I owe. From Portland. I borrowed money when things got bad. Thought I could pay it back when I got a new job. But it didn't work out that way. Eli's stomach twisted. How much? Caleb's gaze dropped. $5,000. Plus interest. Eli exhaled sharply. $5,000 was a fortune in Willow Creek, where most people scraped by on mill wages or fishing hauls. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice tight with frustration and fear. Because I didn't want you to look at me like you are now, Caleb said, his voice raw. Like I'm some screw-up you have to fix. Eli stepped closer, his anger softening. I'm not looking at you like that. I'm scared. Caleb. For you. For us. Caleb's eyes met his. And for a moment, they were just Eli and Caleb again. Two kids who'd fallen in love against the odds. I'm trying to make it right, Caleb said. I've been saving. Working odd jobs. Matt's been helping. But it's not enough yet. Eli's mind raced. Matt. Of course. Matt knew. That explained his evasiveness. His worry. We'll figure it out, Eli said, his voice steady despite the chaos inside. But you need to be straight with me. No more hiding. Caleb nodded, a flicker of relief in his eyes. Okay. No more hiding. They spent the day working side by side on the shed. The physical labor a temporary escape from the looming threat. Eli watched Caleb, noting the way his hands moved with purpose, the way his brow furrowed in concentration. He was still the man Eli loved, flawed and stubborn, but trying. And that was enough to keep Eli fighting for him. That evening, Matt came home, his face drawn. Eli didn't waste time. You knew about Caleb's debt, he said, keeping his voice low so Caleb, in the other room, wouldn't hear. Matt nodded, guilt etching his features. Yeah. He told me a couple weeks ago. I've been giving him what I can, but it's not much. Eli's jaw tightened. And you didn't think to tell me. Again. I was trying to protect you, Matt said, his voice pleading. You were finally back. Trying to heal. I didn't want to drag you into this. Eli shook his head, frustration boiling. He's not just your friend, Matt. He stopped, the word catching. He's mine to protect too. Matt's eyes softened. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't want to lose you again. The honesty in Matt's voice disarmed Eli. He saw the toll this had taken on his brother. The weight of keeping secrets for both their sakes. We're in this together now, Eli said. All three of us. Matt nodded. A silent agreement. They sat down with Caleb. The three of them around the kitchen table, laying it all bare. Caleb explained the debt money borrowed from a shady lender in Portland. A guy named Vince who didn't take kindly to late payments. The texts were a warning. A reminder that Vince knew where Caleb was. We need a plan, Eli said, his mind racing. Can we pay him off in parts? Caleb shook his head. Vince wants it all. Soon. Matt leaned forward. I've got some savings. Not enough for the full amount, but it's a start. Maybe we can negotiate. Eli's heart swelled at Matt's willingness to help, but the fear lingered. Vince didn't sound like the negotiating type. We'll find a way, Eli said, more to himself than anyone else. We have to. That night, Eli and Caleb sat on the porch, the stars bright above. For the first time in months, they talked without walls about their dreams, their fears, the love that still burned despite everything. I never stopped loving you, Caleb said, his voice barely above a whisper. Eli reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining. I know. Me neither. But as they sat there, the threat of Vince loomed, a shadow over their fragile hope. Eli knew they were running out of time, and he'd do whatever it took to keep Caleb safe even if it meant facing the past he'd tried so hard to leave behind. The next morning, Eli woke with a plan. They couldn't wait for Vince to make the next move. He found Caleb and Matt in the kitchen, coffee mugs in hand, their faces heavy with worry. We're going to Portland, Eli said, his voice firm. We find Vince. We talk to him. We settle this. Caleb's eyes widened. Eli. No. You don't know what he's like. He's not reasonable. I don't care, Eli said, his resolve unshakable. We're not sitting here waiting for him to show up. We face this head on. Matt nodded, his expression grim but supportive. I'm in. I've got a friend in Portland who might know where to find this guy. Let's do it. Caleb hesitated, fear flickering in his eyes. But he nodded. Okay. But you stay out of his way. Eli. Promise me. Eli didn't promise, because he knew he couldn't. If it came to protecting Caleb, he'd do whatever it took. The drive to Portland was tense. The three of them crammed into Matt's truck, the coastal highway stretching endlessly ahead. Eli sat in the back, sketching to calm his nerves. But every line turned into Caleb's face, etched with worry. Matt's friend, a bartender named Jake, had given them a lead. Vince hung out at a dive bar on the edge of the city, a place where deals were made in the shadows. When they arrived, the bar was a haze of cigarette smoke and neon. Vince was easy to spoto wiry man with cold eyes, sitting in a corner booth, flanked by two others. Eli's heart pounded, but he kept his face steady as they approached. Caleb, Vince said, his voice smooth but laced with menace. You brought friends. How sweet. Caleb stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tension. I'm here to settle up. I've got some of the money. I need time for the rest. Vince leaned back, smirking. Time's not something I give out. Kid, you owe me $7,000 now. With interest. Pay up, or things get messy. Eli's fists clenched, but Matt put a hand on his shoulder. A silent warning. We've got $3,000, Matt said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. It's a start. We'll get the rest soon. Vince's eyes narrowed, but he took the envelope, counting the bills. This buys you a week. Don't make me come find you. Caleb nodded, his face pale but resolute. You won't. As they left the bar, Eli's relief was overshadowed by the ticking clock. $4,000 in a week was a steep climb, but he wasn't giving up. Back in the truck, Caleb grabbed his hand, squeezing tight. Thank you, he whispered. Both of you. Matt glanced back, a small smile breaking through. We're family. Man, we've got you. The drive home was quieter, the weight of the deal settling over them. Eli's mind raced with ideas selling his old art, picking up odd jobs, anything to scrape together the money. But when they got back to Willow Creek, a new problem was waiting. A black SUV was parked outside the house, and two men stood on the porch, their postures anything but friendly. Vince's guys, Caleb said, his voice tight. He's making sure I don't run. Eli's blood ran cold, but he stepped out of the truck, his protective instincts flaring. Stay here, he told Caleb, ignoring his protests. Matt followed, his jaw set. One of the men, broad-shouldered with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. Caleb owes us. Where is he? He's working on it, Eli said, his voice steady despite the fear. You got your $3,000. You'll get the rest. The man smirked, but there was no humor in it. Better hope so. Vince doesn't like waiting. They left, but the threat lingered like smoke. That night, Eli and Caleb sat in the shed, the guitar silent between them. I'm sorry I dragged you into this, Caleb said, his voice breaking. Eli cupped his face, their foreheads touching. You didn't drag me. I'm here because I love you. Always will. Caleb's eyes glistened, and he kissed Eli. Soft at first, then desperate, like they were running out of time. The kiss was a promise, a tether to the future they both wanted. But as they pulled apart, Eli knew the fight wasn't over. They had 1 week, and he'd move mountains to keep Caleb safe. The week was a blur of desperation and determination. Eli sold every sketch he could, his art finding buyers among Willow Creek's small but loyal art scene. Matt picked up extra shifts at the mill, and Caleb took on odd jobs fixing fences, painting houses, his hands calloused but his resolve unbroken. Together, they scraped together $3. $500, just shy of the $4,000 needed. It wasn't enough, but it was close, and Eli clung to the hope that it would buy them more time. The night before the deadline, the three of them sat in the living room, counting cash on the coffee table. The air was heavy, the weight of Vince's threat pressing down. We'll make it work, Eli said, his voice firm. We go back to Portland. Show him we're serious. He'll see we're trying. Caleb shook his head, his eyes haunted. Vince doesn't care about trying. He wants it all, or he'll make good on his threats. Matt leaned forward, his voice steady. Then we don't go alone. Jake's got connections, people who can back us up. We show Vince we're not scared. Eli nodded, though fear gnawed at him. He looked at Caleb, whose hands trembled slightly as he recounted the bills. This was their fight now. All of them. And Eli wouldn't let Caleb face it alone. The next morning, they piled into Matt's truck again, the envelope of cash tucked inside Eli's jacket. The drive to Portland felt shorter this time, the urgency propelling them forward. Jake met them at the bar, his face grim but resolute. Vince is expecting you, he said, nodding toward the same corner booth. Vince was there, alone this time, his cold eyes locking onto Caleb as they approached. You're cutting it close, he said, his voice dripping with menace. Got my money. Caleb set the envelope on the table. Free 5. It's what we have. I'll get the rest soon. Vince's smirk faded as he counted the cash. You're short. I don't do short. Eli stepped forward, his heart pounding but his voice steady. You'll get the rest in a week. We're good for it. You've seen we're trying. Vince's eyes narrowed, assessing Eli. You his guard dog now. Cute. But I don't make deals with promises. Before Eli could respond, Jake stepped in, his presence commanding. You'll get your money. Vince. These guys are straight. You don't need to make this messy. For a moment, the air was electric, the threat of violence hanging heavy. Then Vince leaned back, a calculating glint in his eyes. 1 week. Last chance. Don't test me. They left the bar, adrenaline coursing through Eli's veins. In the truck, Caleb grabbed his hand, his grip tight. I don't deserve you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Eli squeezed back. We're in this together. No matter what. Back in Willow Creek, the tension eased but didn't vanish. They had 1 more week, 1 more chance to make it right. Eli and Caleb spent every moment together, rebuilding what they'd lost. Late nights in the shed, Caleb's guitar filling the air, Eli's sketches capturing their fragile hope. Matt watched them, a quiet pride in his eyes, the brother who'd carried them both through the storm. On the final day, they sold the last of Eli's art, a portrait of Caleb, his eyes bright with love, and scraped together the final $500. They drove to Portland, hearts pounding, and handed Vince the full amount. He counted it slowly, then nodded, a grudging respect in his eyes. You're clear, he said. Don't come back. They didn't. Back in Willow Creek, the house felt lighter, the shadows gone. Caleb moved out of Matt's place, renting a small apartment above the diner, and Eli moved in with him. They rebuilt slowly, brick by brick, their love stronger for the cracks it had survived. One night, under the stars on the pier, Caleb took Eli's hand, their compass tattoos glinting in the moonlight. I thought I'd lost you, he said, his voice soft but sure. But you brought me back. Eli smiled, his heart full. We brought each other back. And as the waves crashed below, they stood together, 2 imperfect souls who'd found their way home, not just to Willow Creek, but to each other. The scars remained, but so did the love, a quiet promise that no debt, no distance, could ever break.